Good morning, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Chop Talk brought to you by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for everything daily fantasy sports related, all sports covered, content, tools, optimizers, coaching through Q&A with our experts and our members alike to make you a better player when it comes to daily fantasy sports. I'm your host, Chopadong. This is Chop Talk. Let's dive in today and talk a little bit about the process. Process is very, very important. Bonus tip to lead off the episode today. When you have a process that is the same day in and day out and day in and day out, you can let the variance flow through you. The volatility of the game rides through you. You ride through the ups, you ride through the downs. Hopefully there's more ups than downs, and that's just how. Now you can add and you can evolve as a player and add a little bit to what you're doing, but make those changes slowly, because if you make them too quick and you jump from coach to coach to coach, or lineup seller to lineup seller, or content advisor to whatever, you do big stats here, and all of a sudden we're not going to WOBA anymore, we're going to OPS and whatever else. If you make those changes, you never know how a subtle change can affect things, much less wholesale changes where you're completely tearing something down and starting completely over. You never get, all you end up doing is chasing your tail. An analogy I used with my daughter the other day is actually a pretty good one for DFS. When Yellowstone reintroduced wolves back, 20, 30, 40 years ago, reintroduced wolves to the park, they noticed that the deer population came down, the tree and grass population came up, and all of a sudden trees were allowed to grow again. Beavers were cutting down trees, they were moving back into the rivers and the lakes, and then amphibians and things were living in the calm waters again, and the whole ecosystem started to balance back out. One little change made a giant difference across the whole thing. That happens in DFS too. You take the wolves right back out, and all of a sudden it will rebalance, but it rebalances in a different way. Now, is that good or is that bad? Who knows? Same thing when I add in a stat or take out a stat to my process. Is it going to make a good change or a bad change for DFS? Who knows? We're dealing with a lot of variables here. And with all of these different variables, one little cog in the machine can just throw a wrench in everything. So that's your little bonus tip today. Make your changes slowly, and you'll find that you're able to track it over a week or 2 weeks and then slowly evolve as a player instead of trying to find the right method right away. It's a process. This is a game of attrition. This is not a game of I'm on it today and I'm, off it tomorrow. This is a game of attrition where you slowly build your skill as a player. Now, my process is to find a good pitcher, to then attack the bad pitchers and attack them with the hot bats in the offenses that are facing those bad pitchers. And that's very, very simple. People are busy. You can't spend hours and hours doing this. I don't want to spend hours and hours doing this either. So I skim the surface, draw lines in the sand, and move on. And where the dice fall out of the Yahtzee cups, where they fall out. And oftentimes, as long as you're using common sense, it works. We sort here. If you're not familiar with the DFS Army website and you want to become a VIP, of course, follow the link in the comments section down there, dfsarmy.com. Use coupon code CHOP, CHOP. Trigger an extra 10% discount for yourself. Grandfather yourself in over the lifetime of your membership, because our prices are going up in a couple of days. They just are. I'm trying to shout the warning, guys. I'm trying to tell you that prices are going up because I don't want to spend your money for you. I'd rather you use it in your bankroll. But they are going up, and you get all of the tools, all of the everything for one flat investment in your own game. Okay? And of course, there's no commitment beyond the month that you bought. So you're not committed, and your price doesn't change when our prices go up. If you get grandfathered in today, then your prices stay the same. Anyway, point is, when we look at the pictures, if you're not familiar with the website, you go down here to MLB, you go to the research station, look at both these tutorials when you get a chance. They're great tools to use, and you're going to pull up the research station. You're going to sort it descending, because it's coming that way by default. But what you're going to do is you're going to pull these ranks. This is a catch-all number, DFSA grade. Sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not. I'll use it as a tiebreaker. It gives me the overall talent of the pitcher plus the lineup they're facing, and gives me, kind of spits out a basic matchup number from 1 to 100. It's a good number, but I can find it more specifically and sometimes split some hairs. I'm going to use Vegas lines number or Vegas odds numbers over in this section. 160, 160, 140 is about the best we've got today. There's no minus 300. Got to roll with what you got. And then I'm going to use K-score, and I'm going to sort this K percentage by descending order, bring the strikeout pitchers to the top, or at least those with the most potential on this particular slate. How do you find the slate? You come up here to these numbers and you click off all of the afternoon games. You get just the main slate tonight, and you get those 6 games, those 6 teams, or 12 teams, and that's how you find that slate. Now you're only looking at numbers that matter for the main slate. Anyway, when I find the starting pitcher here, the K percentage, 28 is great, 23 is okay. But this is a sliding scale. As this number goes down, this number can come up over in here and keep things balanced out. What I'm looking for, honestly, is double green. Oh, just gave away my double red hint that I'm going to give you here later. Now you know what you're looking for. You're looking for double reds and double greens. Double reds are bad, double greens are great. So all I'm trying to do is find the highest K-score I can. If I had ideally a 25% here and a 25% here, that adds up to 50%. Drop the decimal and becomes a 500. 500 is just my metric. Over 500 is usually really, really strong. Under 500 is okay. Under 400 sucks. So the bottom line is what you're trying to find is the strongest combination of Vegas odds, price point, and K-score, which is K percent and opposite K percent added together. I find in Rich Hill 28.7 added to a 21.3, that gives me, what, a 49, 500 right on the nose. Luke Weaver, 460. Glasnow, 430. Anibal Sanchez, 450. I come down here and look, lower K-score out of Jake Junis, but higher opponent strikeout percentage, still a 450. So it tells me in terms of strikeout potential, Anibal Sanchez and Jake Junis are roughly in the same matchup, roughly in the same position. So then I would use the tiebreaker. What would it be? Would it be price? Would it be Vegas odds? What? Who's the better pitcher? Because that number is kind of the same. What I'm going to find out quickly is how to discover the matchups and the pricing tiers within there. And what we're going to find out when we go by price, so let me flip this on its head and sort by price for you, descending order. Now I've got Rich Hill, Anibal Sanchez. Rich Hill is $10,000, a minus 160 out of Vegas, and a 500 K-score. That's our baseline. Anibal Sanchez is minus 165 out of Vegas, 450 K-score, and $1,500 cheaper. Well, is the $1,500 worth the sacrifice in strikeout potential? That's what you have to determine based on the bats you're targeting or based on whatever. That's what, I mean, they're kind of the same. It's kind of, it's it wouldn't surprise me if, one guy gets 50 points and one guy gets 40 points. And if Annabelle gets 40 points and Rich Hill gets 50, it's the same as far as a value multiplier. It hit 5x. This is kind of the same. Now the difference is whose bats did better. Now Anibal Sanchez probably has room to get the 50 before Rich Hill has room to get the 65. So there's maybe a little bit more potential in the cheaper guys. That's why everybody loves them. They also love bats. Freeland is awfully overpriced today. When you look at Freeland, he's a plus 125 dog facing St. Louis, and he's a 393 K-score under 400. Why would I ever pay for that? Sanchez is much better. I'd rather pay up to Rich Hill. I'd rather even pay down to Nick Kingham, who's a 105 dog. It's more of a pick'em than being a pure dog. And on top of that, he's a 422 K-score, so he's got a little better strikeout potential than Freeland, and he's cheaper. Cole Hamels, again, not great, low K-score. Tropiano, again, pretty low K-score, 431. He's in a pick'em game. He's 7,500, but for 7,500, I'd almost rather pay up to Anibal Sanchez 1,000 more. Chase Anderson, I already showed you. Chase Anderson's big number here today is he's a 37 DFSA grade. Yuck. I will take notice of those things. Chase Anderson has a pretty low K-score, and he's a big dog at a plus 145 facing the Dodgers. Take that for what it's worth. Probably not worth the 7,300. Luke Weaver at 7,000 actually is not bad. He's a minus 140 out of Vegas, a 471 K-score. That's about second highest on the slate. And all of that for $7,000. So I've got a $3,000 savings, a comparable K-score, and a comparable Vegas number. So when Vegas and K-score are kind of the same, that $3,000 is going to speak to me, and I'm going to like Weaver. Now, is Weaver going to be my number one pitcher? I don't know. But I'm going to have some shares of him. I might even have some shares of Jake Junis for $400 cheaper. I get a pick'em game and a 450 K-score. All right. It's not terrible. It's better than Freeland. It's better than Kingham. So this is how you're using these numbers to compare each other's price ranges back and forth. When you settle on a few pitchers that stand out to you, there they are. Maybe you make 10 lineups. You put Rich Hill in 6 of them and, Sanchez in 2 and Weaver in 2. I don't know. Whatever your percentage is that you like, maybe you only make 3 lineups and you take one of each, or 2 of one and 1 of another. That's fine. That's what I do. I mix and match a little bit because I don't know when Rich Hill's going to implode. I don't know when Luke Weaver's going to give up a grand slam. And I don't want to be all in on the guy when he does. As volatile as this game is, you don't want to be all in on anybody ever. Now, I go over to DFSA grade. I sort by ascending order this time to find the pitchers that I want to pick on. It's bringing the bad pitchers to the top. I mean, it stands to reason. Good pitchers have a good number. Bad pitchers have a bad number. Right? You're going to find lower K scores, of course. But what you're really going to find is if you scroll over a little bit, you're going to find how it correlates with Sierra. Sierra is a predictive ERA number. This is the ERA the pitcher should be pitching to. And anywhere around a 5 is not good. Whitey Herzog used to say, if you've got a 5 ERA in July, you're not on my team. Now, those days have gone. That's changed, but it's a good metric to use. Anything over a 5 is good, good, good for bats. Dylan Covey, good to stack against today. And then what the slate offers next, Glasnow, Freeland, Tropiano. And what you're going to notice in some cases today when we're really splitting hairs on a bunch of mediocrity and there's no real standout other than Covey, bad pitcher, and there's no real standout who honestly is facing Kansas City, which is not a real powerful offense. So that matchup might not even pan out. But what you're looking at is these numbers too. You're looking at whip and BB per 9 and stuff like that. And BB per 9, walks per 9 tells me who's going to put people on base. Glasnow has a very small sample size, so you have to be careful with that. But Covey puts people on base. Freeland, Tropiano tend to put people on base. Any wonder why their Sierras are high? That's why. Their whip, walks plus hits per innings pitched, is also high. 1.6, 1.4. Those are not great. So these are indicators of maybe where we can split some hairs. But as a whole, I'm going to be targeting these 3 or 4 bottom pitchers, maybe down in here if I see powerful offenses. So Kansas City, LA, St. Louis are going to be my targeted offenses, maybe a little bit of Tampa, maybe a little Cubs, I don't know. Mostly up here as much as I feasibly can. And what I'm going to do is I'm then going to go over here. So I wrote those teams down. I'm going to scroll all the way over here. And I'm getting fancy on you, and I apologize. But I'm going with the opponent's run score. This is where implied run total comes from. And I'm setting up how we're really going to find those offenses. So I'm going to sort that in descending order and bring the top bats. Because we're looking at pitchers. We want to know who's going to score a lot of runs against those pitchers. And now what we find is these top 3 or 4 are what Vegas thinks are the best offenses. So we go back over here and we see, Atlanta popped in there, White Sox popped in there, Kansas City, LA. Kansas City and Chicago face each other today. So guess what? That's a game stack situation on this short slate. And I've got St. Louis still in there. So I'm going to add Atlanta into the mix. So I'm really looking at like Atlanta, Chicago, Kansas City, LA, St. Louis, LA Angels, Tampa Bay. That's a lot to look at. That's overwhelming. We still need to cut that down further. And we're going to do that now by going into the pitching stats of the righties and the lefties splits. Yes, some pitchers handle lefties better than righties, and some handle righties better than lefties. I don't care. I want somebody who sucks against both. Right? That's what I'm calling double red. Because on this page, I can sort that by WOBA descending, bring the red to the top over here, and see where red might match up over here. And guess who I'm now targeting? The guys who can't get either side of the plate out. Why? Because if I can get righties out, and I face 2 lefties and they get on base, and I've got 2 outs in the 7th inning, and all of a sudden a righty comes up to the plate and zap, I get him out and I get out of the inning. I killed the rally. But if I can't get lefties out or I can't get righties out, guess what that lineup has the potential to do? Turn over again and again and again and again and give me a 4-run, a 5-run, a 6-run inning, a 25-run game like the Washington Nationals last night. Big rallies. Those are what we're looking for in DFS. That's where we take our gambles. That's where we take our chances. And we want indicators to show us where we might find that today. It's a funny game, man. We're hitting a round ball with a round bat. But the numbers show us the potential is there. And so when I'm looking at double red, where's Covey? Right back at the top of the list. This little bit of green, whatever. Sanchez is hittable by righties, but not so much lefties. Look at this. You kind of got a double red, a pink red. You kind of got a double red in Glasnow. Again, small sample size warning with him. Come down here, and all of a sudden, Jake Junis is vulnerable. Come down here, Pablo Lopez maybe a little, not so much in Tropiano now. Come down here a little bit, and these guys are pretty good against righties, but they're not good against lefties. So really what I'm looking at is Covey, Glasnow, Junis, maybe Pablo Lopez. That's 4 offenses. So let's come over here again and look at who they are. Kansas City, LA, Chicago, Atlanta. Those are my double reds for today. At least who I'm picking. You might see something differently. That's fine. Learn to use the numbers yourself and infuse some other numbers into your process. This is my process. That's all I'm trying to do. So now I need to target those offenses. I told you, Atlanta, Chicago, KC, LA, St. Louis, LAA, Tampa Bay. But we're really focused on Atlanta, Chicago, Kansas City, and who else did I mention? Can't even remember who I mentioned at this point. But what we're going to find them is through the Trends tab in the Research Station. When I kick over to the Trends tab, now I need to double check and make sure that I've got my evening slate lined up. And I'm going to look for 2 things. And this is my I guess, second tip of the day. For cash games, you're just taking the best of the best. Okay, you're going to come over here to WOBA, last 7 WOBA, and you use your number filters. And you're going to come down here to greater than. You're going to punch in about a 350. Some days on big slates when you got a ton of bats to choose from, you may want to punch in 375 or even 400. I don't know. I'm just considering 350 playable. I want to weed out the cold bats, the guys that aren't hitting for shit right now. I want to weed them out. I want to only be dealing with bats that are showing some potential. And now that I've got that, I'm using the DFSA grade, of course, but I'm seeing that LA 1, 2, 3 bats, stackable. Chicago Cubs, got a couple of hot bats in there, but only 2 guys. Kansas City's got 1 hot bat sitting in there. Then I see Colorado. Now I see some Chicago White Sox, 3 hot bats. There's a nice little stack. Abreu, Palka, Davidson, if they get the start today, if Palka gets in there. I mean, these are just kind of things that I'm looking for. If I'm looking for, I just want as many guys off this list in my lineup as possible. For cash games, I don't care about stacking them together. For tournaments, I'd rather stack them because, as you saw last night, Matt Olson got a hit, scored 2 runs with it. It was RBI double or something like that. Matt Olson got points. So did the 2 guys he drove in that got on base ahead of him. And that parlays those points together and drives you up the leaderboards in GPPs. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for that upside. You're looking to really hit a stack and hit it hard and hit it right. It's sure you get an offense like Washington last night, 25 runs scored. Did you want 1 bat from that offense or did you want 4 bats from that offense? You know what? Me too. That's why we stack in tournaments. That's why that wins tournaments. Now in cash games, if Washington came off and only scored 2 runs, would you want 1 bat or would you want 4 bats? You'd want 1 bat. So in cash games, when you're really trying to avoid duds, you tend to stack a little bit less. Now I don't in baseball anymore. My VIPs know that and they know why. We've been talking about it all year long. So become a VIP and you'll figure it out. So let's get back on track with the Trends tab. And let's talk about the WOBAs and the good numbers here. And then let's turn around and let's start cutting out some of the teams. We wanted to see Atlanta. I'm looking for multiple guys on the same team that I would stack. And I'm looking for numbers in the 400s typically. I will accept a 370. I will accept a 350 if it's part of my stack. But if I was stacking Atlanta today, these are the 4 guys I'd be using because they're the only 4 guys that are hitting. If I look at Chicago, well, let's look at the other Chicago, the White Sox. Look, they got a lot of guys on there. I'm going to look at plate appearances too, though. I want starters, so Abreu would be in there. And I want some of these other guys. I'm going to be watching for Kevin Smith, Delmonico, Palka, guys like that to get the start. Matt Davidson. If these guys get the start, I'm throwing them in there. 23 at-bat sample size in the 900 WOBA. Palka was a machine when he got, now he might be hurt. I doubt it because he's not red or orange. But if he gets the start today, he's a sneaky one. It's also going to be cheap. You know what I'm saying? But Washington or Chicago, being that they're in a good spot against Jake Junis potentially, has some firepower. Kansas City also, being against Dylan Covey, the fire gas can of the slate. Is there anybody on this offense that's hot? Well, there are a few. A lot of them aren't playing much. 12 at-bats, 20 at-bats, 4 at-bats. But if Herrera and Salvi get in there, then I'm definitely going to be using those 2 guys. And I might look at like a Hunter Dozier if he gets the start. If he gets a spot start or something like that, bam, he's going right in there for a 3 stack. And I would, stack this game up pretty hard. potentially, if I'm not using Jake Junis as one of my other pitchers. We said LAA. Take a look at LA. You got some big bats in here, right? These are running hot in the 400s. I like them. All right, those are the guys I'd be stacking. When I come to the Dodgers, though, look at this. A lot of 300s. I would rather use the Angels. I don't mind using. Now look at what is happening to Grandal. He was hot there for a while. He's starting to cool off. His 14-day number is higher than his 7-day. He's starting to cool off. He's not keeping the pace up. I mean, 450 is unsustainable. But this is how you start looking to maybe get off the train. He's about to fall right off the map of the 350 sorted, you know, if I sort by 350. Machado's okay as a one-off. These guys get starts. I may consider them, but I'm probably not stacking LA. They're just not running hot enough as a whole team. When I look at St. Louis, I should see a little bit of the same. You know, Matt Carpenter's really cooled off from a 530 down to a 360, but look at all the 350s. Those aren't great. I want these numbers. So I would rather, now don't get me wrong, if I'm going to run Marcell Ozuna and Tyler O'Neill today, I'll pick up one of these other guys for sure and complete the stack with them. You know what I mean? Because they're running okay, and they might be the one that delivers the blow when these guys are on base. Who knows? But I would rather see all the 400s. See where I'm going with that? Tampa Bay also got some decent upper threes, low fours, mid fours. Okay, they're in a good spot today too against Tropiano potentially. They're dirt cheap too. They're getting at bats too. You know, these are the guys that I'd be looking at. Wendell, Kiermaier, Malik Smith. You know, you want a real nice little surprise? How about if Sucre gets a spot start? Nobody will be on him. He's hitting 426 over last week. Michael Perez, 493 over the last, you know, his first 14 at-bats. Who knows? These are GPP winning numbers if they hit one out at 2% ownership. Okay, so this is basically the process. You find your pitcher, you attack your pitcher, you find the hot bats doing it, you make a few decisions, you make a few lineups, you throw them out there, you roll the Yahtzee dice, and you see what comes out. It sounds overly simplified, but it's not. And I've got the tool that gives it to you, you know, as a VIP. That's why you need this tool. Let me go through one other thing with you, one other analogy with you here really, really quick, and then we'll call it good for today, hopefully in under 25 minutes. You know, Milwaukee acquired Moustakas, right? Milwaukee Brewers, and they put Moustakas at third. So where does Travis Shaw go? He goes to second base. And what they're really hoping in Milwaukee is that the gain that they gain in offense offsets or outweighs the loss that they lost in defense by making that switch around. How much? A run per game? That'd be nice. Half a run per game? I mean, we're logical people. We understand that that number it's a small change. Over 162 game season, it's going to take time to bear out. If they're scoring 4.25 runs per game and they jump to 4.35 runs per game, it was a positive change. But they need time for that to bear out, which goes back into the first tip of the day that I shared with you about making changes slowly and then giving it time to show itself. The long run is very, very, very long in DFS, much less baseball. And you need these opportunities to survey your process and see if it's working, and then maybe make a little change. You don't all of a sudden fire 4 of your infielders and then go bring up your minor leaguers and think that's going to make you a World Series team. That's too drastic. But I see people in DFS do it all the time. What they're hoping for in Milwaukee is that little bit of sacrifice in defense gives them more of a boost in offense, and it improves their overall offense as a whole. Over 162 games, it's a very, very significant thing. It's not significant over 4 days. You know, you might be running cold. You might be running hot. You might not be able to tell. You need a little bit longer sample size, a little larger sample size. You're making decisions like this in DFS, and what seems large to you, you know, sort of isn't day to day. You need to let that long run play out. So that's kind of the last analogy I'll give you. We'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up here today. That's the main slate. I'm Chapadon. Come in. Get yourself grandfathered in, become a VIP, dfsarmy.com, use code CHOP, C-H-O-P, knock off that other extra 10%. Come talk to me in my coaching channel. I love talking DFS with people all day long, but I need more VIPs to do it, so come join me, won't you? Take care, guys.